If you're new to picking fabric, it can feel really overwhelming and like there's so many options, which is why in this video, you're going to learn 5 tips you should use when buying fabric and 5 tips to avoid making those beginner mistakes. So that way, by the end of this video, you should feel more confident in your fabric buying decisions. Hi, my name is Abby and I help absolute beginners start making clothes they love. And this video is actually part of a free event I put together called the Fabric Shopping Bootcamp. It's a place for you to get all of your fabric questions answered all in one place. And if you join the official event, you actually get a chance to win over $500 in sewing prizes. So if you'd like to learn more about the event, the link is in the description. Again, it's totally free. So let's head over to Nacho Ann's so she can tell you all about the 5 do's and don'ts of picking your fabric.
Hello, my name is Teresa, and I am the founder of Nacho Ann's Fabrics. That's right, this little cutie back here, that's Nacho Ann. When I tell you I've been sewing my whole life, that's going to give you the impression that somehow I am an advanced sewist, but I am not. At some point in time, I would say about 15 or so years ago, sewing just became so incredibly expensive, patterns being $10 to $20, fabric being $10 to $20 a yard. I just gave up altogether. And it wasn't until the pandemic that I discovered that there were fabric thrift stores. And I ended up connecting with somebody that was looking to sell their relatives' stash of fabric. They had a grandmother that had been a tailor throughout the 70s and 80s and 90s, and they had this giant stash. So I went and I bought it, and I thought to myself, I'll never need to buy fabric again if I buy all these tubs. And then work is what it is, and I ended up needing to leave a job that was incredibly toxic. So after quite a few months of looking for work that was comparable to what I was already making, I was having a hell of a time all of a sudden. And so what I did was think to myself, you know what? There are other fabric thrift stores. Why can't I get this started? So at the end of 2023, I started to research what it would take. And by February of 2024, Nacho Ann. If you're wondering if I am speaking into a miniature disco ball microphone, you would be kind of correct. I am actually a pretty kooky individual. Just put a little foam on the outside of here and tucked my microphone in there so I could be a little extra dramatic. I started sewing in high school, and I fell in love with it at the high school fashion show. When you were asked to make one outfit, I made 3. And every garment that I made had a matching headpiece. I was in love with fashion design. In order for sewing to be a success, there are many factors involved. But one of the things is just starting out on the right foot. So today I'm going to give you 5 things to avoid and 5 things that you should do when you're just beginning your sewing exploration. In a minute here, we're going to turn this camera around and go sit at my sewing table. Okay, so now that we're turned around, I'm going to have to let go of this microphone, which I really don't want to do because I like it a lot. The one thing that I think that you should avoid when beginning your sewing exploration is staying away from stretch fabric. Now, you're going to get into them very soon after, I'm sure, but in the beginning, don't do it. It's not worth the risk of you not loving sewing because stretch fabrics can really do a number on your brain. And I'll explain why. So here we have 2 pieces of fabric. This one is just a regular quilting cotton piece. And if you see this way and this way, there are not a whole lot of, there's no give. Even diagonally is not very stretchy. But then this one, on the other hand, look at this. There's some serious stretch, but you can't tell by touching it. Well, I mean, I guess if you're an expert, if you touched it, you would be able to recognize the difference. But if you were to grab it this way and just tug at it, you would see that there is no stretch in this direction. There's stretch, of course, diagonally, and then there's stretch this way as well. So I'm going to show you what happens when you're not prepared for fabric being stretchy. Now, you see on here, the fabric is, fine, just nice stitching, whatever, hasn't moved. But this has now become a little curved. And you might have seen while I was stitching that I was tugging at it a little bit. And I would not normally do that, but I did it because as a beginning sewist, you're not as comfortable with letting the fabric just go. So you're going to run into problems where when you go to stitch, it's naturally going to try to stretch it out, especially if you're holding on to it, it will stretch the fabric. And so you end up with this curlier piece as opposed to this. And this can create a problem when you're looking for, just the right fit for something. So this is why I'm saying stay away from fabrics that have stretch. The next thing I would recommend is staying away from things like stripes and plaid. And of course, I'll explain to you why. So here we have a piece of striped fabric, and I'm going to match it up. I don't know if you can see this. Let's see. So the stripes are fairly well matched up, right? Let's just make them even. And you see how they're like matching up. But what happens when you're not paying attention and you're just like, oh, I'm just going to put these together however. And let's say you're like, maybe the two pieces, you weren't really paying attention when you cut them out. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to put these two pieces together right here. And so and then you're like, oops, that's not the way that I wanted them to go. I'm kind of simplifying it with the way that I deliberately turned this sideways. But this can happen if you're not paying attention to how you're cutting the fabric when you go to lay the pattern pieces down on the fabric. You could cut it and then not realize when you go to stitch that you have the stripes lining up incorrectly, horizontal to vertical. And then the same goes for plaid. If you're not really thinking about it ahead of time, again, so you see right here, they wouldn't really match up. If you wanted the plaids to match up perfectly, you obviously failed. The next thing I would recommend avoiding is zippers. Zippers. Motherfucking zippers. Just stay away in the beginning, okay? I do not love, and I don't think I ever will love, sewing zippers. Somebody might, and you might be good at it. But because I don't have enough time to sew to become good at it, you better believe I hate these little bitches. The next thing I'd ask you to avoid is slippery fabrics, like silk or satin. They're beautiful and they feel great, but they are so slippery, especially when you are doing the shiny side to the shiny side. They just slip around like crazy. So I'm not sure you're going to be able to see it on camera, but there is a right side and a wrong side to this fabric. And this is 100% silk. And I did actually sew a garment with this. And I can tell you firsthand that it is beautiful. And I was excited to sew it. But I did run into a lot of problems. Even though these are matched up and I'm going to pin them together, I promise you it will not be that even. All right, let's give this a try. So you can see how it shifted a little bit here. Actually did a pretty good job, better than I usually do. But yeah, as you curve around, it's just going to shift. There's no way to avoid it. So the next thing I would tell you to avoid is something like this. This doesn't feel super thick, but it is pretty sturdy. And if I were to stitch it, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, nor would it be that big of a deal to fold it and stitch it like that. But if you had to turn a corner or you have some bulk underneath, you're going to run into a little bit of a problem. So this is just one layer. Here we are sewing 2 layers together. Let's say we were doing a hem, like this, even bulkier. Want to know what's really hilarious is this really does become a problem, but I was trying so hard to create an issue and it wasn't happening. So maybe I am a little bit more of an intermediate sewist, unlike what I'm telling you. Any thicker than this, you will run into stitching problems, missed stitches, tension will change, that you'll have a tension issue. Things to avoid the first few times out. It doesn't mean you can't sew this. It just means just wait. Just let your feet get wet first. Now let's discuss the things that you really should do. Do I do them all the time? You better believe I don't, because I'm not really good at following rules, orders, instructions. But I highly recommend that you think about these things. First up on our recommendations of things that you should do is pressing your seams. Trust me on this, it's something that you have to just get used to. I am impatient and I push through it a lot and then I regret it later. Sometimes it can make the fabric pucker a little bit, making the seam not look so nice. Overall, it just looks better, feels better, and then will fit better. So this is just a regular piece of fabric. This is just a little bit like sturdier quilting cotton, basically. And this one is the same fabric, but I kind of like crinkled it up a bit, right? To make it look a little bit more weathered. So I'm going to sew these 2 pieces. So this is the fabric that's kind of like been beat up and crinkled a little bit before I started sewing it. And this one's already kind of smooth. So you can see like, oh, well, it looks nice, Teresa. Don't mess with it. But when you press it out, oh my gosh, it's just so much better. As you can see, this is what a press seam looks like. Super sharp. I love it. And this is what a non-press seam looks like. So when you go to sew something else, it just feels better to know that you are sewing in a press seam. Like if I'm going to match this up with something else, it just feels better that it would lay down when you go to match it up. So it's really just a better plan to go with this. So the next tip I would share is that you should always pre-wash your fabric. Do I do this? Again, no, I don't necessarily do this all the time. However, if I know that it's something that will shrink a little bit, it is incredibly important because you don't want to make that stitch happen and then you go wash the fabric and then it just doesn't look right because maybe the stitching holds it in place, but the fabric wanted to shrink. It just, something about it just becomes off. So it's better. Pre-wash the fabric, just do it. This tip is a little bit more close to home for me. You really need good lighting for sewing, especially if you are somebody that uses glasses or has a little bit older eyes. I grew up in a house that was very dark. There was a lot of brown. There was a lot of, there wasn't a lot of extra lighting. And when you can't see what you're doing, like when you all of a sudden get good lighting in a room and you're sewing, you're just like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much better it is. It just feels like you're flying blind, kind of. So definitely make sure you have good lighting. This right here is my favorite little tool. I can use it both for making videos and for sewing. And it has this magnifying and an ultra magnifier. So this is an light. Not that I'm, looking for any sponsorship or anything, but this one is really cool. I don't know if, I'm sure none of the JoAnns have these anymore. Oh, look, almost angelic. But I can't remember what I spent on this, maybe a good 50 bucks. But it was worth it. And I probably bought it when I had a coupon a bazillion years ago. But it is one of my favorite lighting tools. So use light. Next up, I would recommend that you measure twice, cut once. Make sure that you are accurate with your cuts, because if you are just really going around them really fast and you don't cut correctly, you're, possibly going to ruin the whole project if it's not properly cut. And the number 5 item on things that you absolutely should do, that you should absolutely look at the pattern back and you find the area where it has the fabric recommendations and pay attention. 2-way stretch knits only, rayon spandex, cotton spandex, and nylon spandex. It also has a lining, so you might want to pay attention to that. So they have those recommendations for a reason, because if they want this dress to look like this, it needs to have certain weight, a certain way that it moves in order for it to look like that. Stretch fabrics look better on a contoured area of your garment. It's just, if you have something that is non-stretchy like this, there's no way that that would be comfortable. So pay attention to the fabric recommendations on the back of your pattern. Nacho Ann's Fabrics is dedicated to creativity, community, and cost savings. So much so that our shipping is, if you live within 20 miles of the zip code 92882, we also have, on Saturdays, we are at the Corona Certified Farmers Market. And if you see something online that you live in our local area, you're welcome to send us a message, either an email or direct message through Instagram. Let us know what you would like to take a look at. We will bring it to the Certified Farmers Market, and that way you can see it in person and you can buy it in person. We also have that as an option when you're purchasing to pick up at the Corona Farmers Market. Thank you for watching to the end of this video. And as a thank you to that, you can use this shipping code right here to get some free shipping.
Thank you, Nacho Ann's, for those amazing tips. I know that when I was a beginner, I made many of those mistakes, and yeah, it's definitely listen to her. She knows what she's talking about. Now I want to hear from you. Which sewing mistakes have you made, like I did? I think I've made all of them. Let me know down in the comments. Or which mistake are you nervous about making and have now avoided thanks to Nacho Ann's? Let me know down in the comments. And don't forget, this video is part of an entire series to help you make more confident fabric buying decisions. So if you don't want to miss anything, then be sure to subscribe and hit that bell below so you'll be notified as soon as all the new videos drop. And you're not going to want to miss tomorrow's video because it is all about what is dead stock. And if you are into being eco-friendly or good to the environment, this video is for you. Now, if you can't wait to binge watch more content, then don't worry, I'm linking the entire Fabric Shopping Bootcamp right here for you to binge right now. Until the next video, happy sewing!